And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and it's time for another deck tech. I'm doing one more from Innistrad Crimson Vow, and that's because I had a poll. If you watched my top 10 commanders from the set video, I thought I'd put a poll on there so that people could vote on the one that they want me to make. And I am pleasantly surprised to find out that Geralf Visionary Stitcher was the one that came out on top, and that's the one that I thought was the most interesting commander from the set. It's not the most powerful. I think it has a very interesting ability, and I'm really kind of disappointed, to be quite honest. I watched a lot of other commander content creators talk about this guy, and every single one said the same thing. Mono blue's not very good for zombie tribal. This is not a zombie tribal commander. The zombies you control have flying really sort of throws you off, I think. That second ability is the ability you want to build around. You want to be sacrificing your creatures to make zombies, right? You don't need to put a bunch of zombies in this deck because you're making them. These zombies you control have flying as an added bonus. So now the zombies you're making are going to have flying and be able to get in for damage really easily. In fact, the only zombie that I put in this deck is Clever Scab. 3 and a blue, zombie horror 2/4. You pay 3 and tap, sacrifice another zombie, create 2 tokens that are copies of the sacrificed creature. And I didn't put this guy in because he's a zombie. I put him in because of his ability, obviously, right? His ability works perfectly in this deck because the tokens that we make with our Geralf, we can now sacrifice and get 2 copies of it. So he works perfectly with what we're doing, but again, this is not a zombie tribal deck. This is a sacrificing creatures theme, and of course, because Geralf says create an XX blue zombie creature token where X is sacrifice creature's toughness, as I said in that video, you want creatures that are going to have big butts, right? Like Cherix the Raging Isle. This is probably the best card in the deck. It's an 0/17, so when we sacrifice it, we're going to get a 17/17 creature that's going to have flying. We don't care that it's not a zombie. This is not zombie tribal. I don't know how many times I can say this. Aegis Turtle is going to be great, right? Just a 1 mana creature that's going to become a 5/5 flyer. I like Corridor Monitor in here. 1 and a blue construct, 1/4. When it enters the battlefield, untap target artifact or creature you control. So we can sacrifice something with our Geralf, then play this, untap our Geralf, and then use it again, sacrifice this. It becomes a 4/4. That's pretty decent. I really like the Walls theme, though, as I already mentioned. Wall of Junk, Wall of Frost is a good one, too. So Wall of Junk's going to be a 2 mana 7/7 when we sacrifice it, and Wall of Frost costs 3 mana, and again is also going to be a 7/7. These are also good blockers. Like, don't forget, we play these walls, and they can just sit there for a while. Our opponents are not going to waste their removal on them. No way. If they attack us, we got blockers. This is a really great strategy here, I think. Crashing Drawbridge is also a great one because, of course, we can tap it to give our commander haste, and then we can also sacrifice at any point to make it into a 4/4 zombie. And I really like Floodgate in this deck. This is a card that I've been wanting to put in a deck for a long time. 3 and a blue, Wall, 0/5, has Defender, of course, and when Floodgate has flying, sacrifice it. Very weird ability. I always thought this would be an interesting include in a Tabor and Lumia deck because you can give your creatures flying. I guess the idea here is it's a floodgate. It's holding back the water, so if it gains flying, it's going to go up in the air and the water's going to come rushing out, right? I love the flavor here. It's really great. But then, of course, when Floodgate leaves the battlefield, it deals damage equal to half the number of islands you control, rounded down to each non-blue creature without flying. So that's actually really good for us. Let's say we have 6 islands in play. It's going to deal 3 damage to each non-blue creature, so it's not going to hit our creatures at all. Also, creatures without flying, so again, not really going to be an issue for us. But, this is just an effect that you just never see in blue, dealing damage to all creatures. I think it's really funny that way. Also fits the theme of what we're doing because we can sacrifice it, right? We don't have to give it flying. We can just sacrifice it to our commander's ability, make a 5/5 zombie, and when it leaves the battlefield, we get the added bonus of wiping out some of our opponent's creatures. The other thing we're doing in this deck, and we are doing a couple different things, is stealing creatures, which is another reason why I think Geralf is a fantastic commander. Ray of Command and Sower of Temptation are going to be great one-shots. We just steal our opponent's best creature, preferably one that has a really big toughness, but if we just want to steal a creature that is problematic, we can do that and then sacrifice it. So we can use this as a piece of removal, but also we can use it as our opponent has a great big creature, we steal it and then make it our great big creature. We also got Callous Oppressor in here. We got Old Man of the Sea. These are just funny, interesting ones that we can grab opponent's creatures with. They're not super fantastic. They have limitations. Old Man of the Sea can only gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to Old Man of the Sea's power. So it's not going to be a big creature. Preferably our opponent has a creature with a small power and big toughness. That would be a perfect target for this. Probably the best one though here is Vedalken Shackles. Of course, a card that you could probably put in any mono blue deck, 3 mana artifact, and again, you may choose not to untap it during your untap step, and you can pay 2 and tap, gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to the number of islands you control for as long as you control Vedalken Shackles and it remains tapped. So not going to be a huge drawback here. We're going to have 5, 6, 7 islands in place, so we should be able to grab pretty much any creature with this. And then again, we don't have to leave our Vedalken Shackles tapped. I mean, we can if we want to. If our opponent has a Vorinclex, we can steal it and then just keep it and use that ability to our advantage. Or we can steal something, sacrifice it to our commander, or any of our other sacrifice effects. We do have a few others, but we can just keep letting this untap, grab another creature, grab another creature. So that's going to be a fantastic theme in the deck as well, allowing us to deal with our opponent's stuff very easily. We also want a couple creatures in this deck that we just want to be sacrificing, like Aura Thief and Reef Worm. Aura Thief, when it dies, is going to let us gain control of all enchantments, so that's pretty darn good. Reef Worm is an interesting one. Of course, we can sacrifice it, and it's going to give us a 3/3 blue fish creature token with, when this creature dies, you get a 6/6 blue whale creature token, and when that creature dies, you get a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token. But of course, we can't sacrifice the tokens because Geralf only allows us to sacrifice non-token creatures. So we can sacrifice the Reef Worm, we get a 1/1 zombie, but then we get the ball rolling with those other abilities as well. So I think that fits. We're going to throw Curiosity Crafter in this deck, of course, because we're going to be attacking with our token creatures all the time. 3 and a blue Bird Wizard, 3/3 with flying. You have no maximum hand size, so that's always going to be good. Whenever a creature token you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So that's some great card advantage. It's basically a Coastal Piracy for your token creatures. And we also have Coastal Piracy in the deck. We don't just have this, we have all of those other effects as well. So card draw is not going to be an issue in this deck, I don't think. Of course, I have Illusionist Bracers. That's going to be a perfect fit here because we are going to sacrifice 1 creature and then get 2 token copies. Wind Reader Sphinx I threw in here. 5 blue Sphinx, 3/7 with flying. Whenever a creature with flying attacks, you may draw a card. So not exactly Sphinx Tribal. Again, we have as many Sphinxes in this deck as we have zombies in this deck. That's how much of a zombie tribal deck this is. It's more flying tribal than anything else, right? So you can really go a heavy flying tribal theme here as well. Whenever one of our flying zombies attack, we're going to get to draw a card. And another interesting thing I decided to do in this deck, I threw in Proteus Staff and Synthetic Destiny. And this is something that I think works really good when you have lots of token creatures, right? Proteus Staff, 3 mana artifact. You can pay 2 blue and tap. Put target creature on the bottom of its owner's library. That creature's controller reveals cards on top of their library until they reveal a creature card and puts it directly onto the battlefield. This helps us in a number of ways. First of all, we can just take a token that we have, tuck it on the bottom of our library, and get an actual creature out of it, right? We can turn a token into a real creature. That's a great way to use this. Another great way to use this is we're putting that creature on the bottom of its owner's library. That creature's controller reveals cards. So now we can steal our opponent's creatures, right? This is another way we can use the steal effects that we have. We steal it, we tuck it on the bottom of its owner's library, and then we control it, so we get to reveal creatures and put something into play. And Synthetic Destiny is just a card that I really think should get more play. 4 blue instant, exile all creatures you control at the beginning of your next end step, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal that many creature cards. Put all creature cards reveal this way onto the battlefield, and then shuffle the rest into your library. So this is just great board wipe protection, or, you know, I mean, it doesn't protect against board wipes, it gives you value off of board wipes. So someone's about to board wipe, and we have a very creature heavy deck here. I mean, we have 30 creatures on top of the creatures that we're going to be making as well. Someone board wipes, we cast this. In response, exile our whole team because they're going to get destroyed anyway. Then on the end step, we get to put a whole bunch of stuff into play from our library. Just great value. Also, again, we have all these tokens. So even if we want to, even if there's no board wipe happening, we can just exile a bunch of tokens and then get actual creatures out of it. And again, we can do the steal thing here as well, where we're stealing our opponent's creatures, we exile them, and then we get value off of them. So both of these cards I think are going to be great fits in this deck for a number of reasons. But that is my Geralf Visionary Stitcher deck. Again, I think this commander is fantastic. It's a really fun, interesting build around. Like I said, I like that it's mono blue. Limiting the colors of commanders allows you to be more inventive with what you're doing, right? We have like 3 or 4 different themes in this deck because this is mono blue. If this was a black blue commander, we'd just stick a bunch of zombies in here. And then you just have a zombie tribal deck, boring. We just had a really great zombie tribal, a blue-black zombie tribal commander in Innistrad Midnight Hunt with Will Health. So we don't need more of that. We don't need more zombie tribal commanders. There's a ton of them already. We need a commander that's doing lots of other interesting things. And there's nothing out there that's doing what Grelf is doing. I don't think there's a single deck out there right now that is going to be sacrificing walls and stealing people's creatures and swinging with giant flying zombie tokens. This is the only deck that's going to be doing that. It's very different than any deck out there. It's very different than any other mono blue deck, which is why I love commanders like this. So the deck list for this guy is in the description below. Feel free to give it a spin. And if you like the way I build decks, I have a Patreon where I do lots of deck building. I do my deck doctors there as well. I've started doing gameplay. Check it out. It also helps support the channel, but that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.